joining us, and thank you to everybody else that is joining us. If you are joining us and you have friends and family that would love to be a part of this really exciting conversation that we're about to have about a very unique concept and first Black owned concept that is happening around groceries and our bodies and minds being nourished and rooted. I'm really excited about that. I would like to introduce myself for those of you that are just joining us. My name is Miranda Joyner. I am the CEO and co-founder of Succeed and Elevate, which is an organization, a 501c3 here in Jackson, Mississippi, that works with small business owners, entrepreneurs, and also artists and creatives to help them with mental and emotional well-being as they grow and succeed in their business. The goal is to help them create safe and nurturing mentally and emotionally communities for them to help them succeed in what they do. And we are partnered with BeamPath to bring you these tech talks every month. So without further ado, I want us to get right into it because we are a little delayed for time. And I want to give you all the time you can to talk about all the things and make sure that we can have people to ask all the questions about the really cool stuff you're doing over there in Georgia. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us something that you would love for us to know about you, whether it is in the business side or the personal side. Maybe it's something unique. And the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I love the work that you all are doing and been following you all and just really impressed. I'm Jilea Hemmings. I am CEO and co-founder of Nourish Bloom Technologies and Nourish Bloom Markets, and I'm really excited to be here. I run our business with my husband and co-founder, so really excited to do that every single day. And we are extremely passionate about how do we continue to increase food accessibility, utilizing the latest in technology, right? So for us, every single new innovation that we deploy is about increasing accessibility, as well as it being super cool, right? This can't be super cool with no foundational function. But a super interesting fact about me, I don't know, there's so many, but I well, people like to say that I'm pretty funny. I'm like that's something I'll add. I'll say that I'm a low key comedian on the side, but that's probably one something that has nothing to do with business, but a little fun fact about me.
Oh, I love that. Have you ever done stand up? That's the question.
No, but I do have my first set written, and I'm building up the courage to get on stage to do
I love it. You should totally try open mic. It's no pressure. You can get up there and test out materials. So find your open mic in a little small, dark club or corner pub and then do it.
exactly, exactly. It's gonna happen.
Absolutely. Well, I want to ask you, do you want to just do you have a PowerPoint presentation or do you want to present or are we just having a great conversation about Nourish and Rooted?
Yeah, we're gonna have a great conversation. I think it's, and I can answer any questions that anyone has. I do have, a visual of the store, so I can always share my screen to show you how the store operates and works throughout our conversation as well.
Amazing. Well, you have permissions to do that, so you'll be able to do that whenever you're ready. Let's start out by
Okay.
talking about how this came about. I know you have a very personal story connected to how this business came about, but and I think in that, for people who don't know what Nourished and Rooted is, you'll be able to explain also what it is for people who might have never heard of it, who are participating and joining us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I moved to Atlanta back in 2019, right before the pandemic hit. And so just as I was getting ready to explore, we were all faced with a challenge that none of us expected. But prior to that, my son, was two at the time, was diagnosed with autism. He's now about to be 17. I don't want to date myself or anything, but we learned the importance of food when he was first diagnosed, and we were both in corporate America and had busy schedules. And we were like, how are we going to make these healthy meals? But obviously, it was for our son. And so we made the time to do so. And so that's how we got into the food space initially. And we ended up being the first in the country before Beyond Meat, before Impossible, to create meatless meals for kids based on traditional kids' favorites. And so we were sold all over the country in major grocery stores like Whole Foods and Publix and Safeway. And it was a great journey. We learned a tremendous amount. We had a lot of adults purchasing our meals. And so that was, my take on understanding how many people didn't know what organic was, didn't know about ingredients. And but it was tough, right? It was a tough business. The food business is not an easy business. And I left after running that for 6 years and vowed never to go back into the food space and got into the tech space, focusing on the pharmaceutical side of business as well as the cannabis side, not plant touching, but helping to increase efficiency around the bottlenecks and making it more efficient on just time management, making sure from the pharmaceutical side that pharmaceutical reps could see doctors and not disturb patients um, operating hours, and the same on the cannabis side between vendors and dispensaries. So I've always been in the space of how do we, take away friction. And so that's how I got into the tech space. But when the pandemic hit, I saw all the challenges that people were dealing with getting toilet paper and food and all the different things um, to make sure that they could, function for their families. And I said, there's a better way to do this. And so it's like, I guess this is that 360 moment where my food background and my tech background are going to come back and play. Because not only was I seeing it for everybody else, I was also seeing the challenges for myself. And so that's how we decided to bridge the two together. I knew the power of AI. I knew what it could do as far as reducing friction. And that's how we created Nourish and Bloom Markets back in 2022. And so we were the first to bring zero checkout, zero line, zero hassle, pretty much technology to the Southern United States, and the first Black owned in the world to do that as well. So it was historic just for the community, right? And just to see the empowerment of, we belong in the space as well was really great because there wasn't anyone that looked like us in the space. And so I wanted to let them know we are here and that there are many others that are going to be coming in the future. And so just the future of shopping, you're going to start seeing more of it. But that's how we got into the space. And now one thing that we realized as we started was that, and I'll probably show the video now because I think that'll help in the next part of this to explain where the challenge was or the bottleneck that we found. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Um, it's giving me the ability to. Okay, perfect. Let me just. Here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's up.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So this is our flagship store. And so I wanted it to be an elevated experience, but this is just showing you the shopping journey that you can either use your app. There's also a way for you to tap and enter the store, and it allows you to be able to grab whatever you want. You're going to see a visual pop up on the left that's showing you from a technical perspective what's happening. But for the consumer, they're just picking up items like they would at any other store. The most of their checkout was that scanning with their app of the QR code. That was all the checkout involved, and then she simply walks out and gets a receipt. It's just that fast. And so this is 24 hours, and we're the first to do a 24/7 grocery store like this in the country as well. But with that, and I'll stop sharing there. Here we go. What the challenge was, though, and as amazing as that checkout experience is that we were leaving out a whole group of people, and that is those that take EBT and SNAP, right? And so when you think about that, the government spends $80 billion a year on SNAP benefits. How are we not taking that payment source? And so it didn't sit right with me. And so we went as a team and redeveloped our entire solution so that we'll be the first in the country to take EBT EBT and SNAP on within that type of shopping journey, which is extremely important to me. And so at that point, my husband grew up in a food desert. We were always passionate about everybody. Our mission is 24/7 access to fresh food. It's not for a certain group, it's for everyone. So we decided to really hone in and carve out focusing on food deserts. And so that's one of the things that we're really passionate about is how do we make sure that when big box stores say no, which I know is a challenge in Jackson as well, started to learn a lot about but the food insecurity there. How do we make sure that the community still has what they need? And this technology takes away a lot of those bottlenecks to make us be able to come into places that maybe a Walmart or whatever the larger food chain, store in that community is could not for whatever reasons they can't that we can. And so that's a little bit about what we're doing.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing to look at the process and to actually see it in play. I do have some questions as I look at the video, though, and you were talking about challenges, that you faced. so it seems that there is a very limited in-person staff. I know you're intentional about having someone there that is actually that you can actually talk to, but majority of the experience is run by AI, and it is, you know, hands-free. What were the challenges that you faced? Because from the looks of the video, and correct me if I'm wrong, you come in and you scan your app, it picks up what you're doing, and as you're placing items in, it's clocking the items, and then you know you have to check out. I know at Sam's Club you scan the items, like you have to scan the items, and they still check you going out the store. You don't have to do that with this particular technology. And so
Right.
is there a person standing at the door like Sam's to make sure that you're not putting 90 things in your item in your bag and running out the door? How do you do theft prevention with that type of access to the grocery?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So there's about 50 cameras on the ceiling, right? So when you scan them with that QR code, it's tied to your bank account, right? So we do have a way of having accounting of who's coming in and out of the store. Um, that store has staff because we have a bistro as well, that's open through normal hours. But all of our other stores are fully unmanned, so there won't be anybody there except for initiatives that we have, like around Senior Day, where we'll come in early to help seniors navigate this new technology. But beyond that, the stores are manned. But there's 50 cameras on the ceiling. There's a turnstile, so the turnstile doesn't open until your payment is validated. And so it's utilizing, I mean, really, AI and machine and sensor fusion, which is a weighted based technology to really merge together to understand exactly what you're taking. So let's say you do decide you're going to take, I don't know, a bag of cereal, for instance. I mean, a box of cereal, and you decide I'm gonna take only half of it and I'm gonna put it back on the shelf or whatever, right? I'm gonna open it, try and eat some of it. We know the weights of all the products, so even if
Mm.
you put it back, you'll still be charged for it, even though you decided to open it. So, I mean, it's really accurate in the sense that with self checkout, there's been so much. I think it's like 150 billion. It's some crazy number in shrinkage since self checkout became more prominent in most stores, and so they're even starting to pull back on that. This is actually, it's not missing anything, right? It's like it's extremely sensitive, and so it knows exactly what you pick up, it knows what you put back, it knows if you put it back in the wrong place. Like all of those things are accounted for, and we get notifications for that. So, I mean, listen, if you are purposely trying to steal, you can do that anywhere, but it's probably one of the more secure systems out there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And that's good to know, right? So question about one of the things I think that Dr. Cephas and the Bean Path staff that they're experiencing here, I think when you get into these spaces that are like food deserts, you have the difference in generations, right? Even just thinking about that, whether it's a food desert or just the world in general, the difference between the boomers and the Gen X's and the millennials and the Gen Z's are one group of people are all they know is technology, all they know is AI, all they know is apps and phones and things of that nature. And then you have people that aren't as receptive and open to change. I know specifically here we started putting up downtown in Jackson. They started putting up the just simply the meters for the cars, where we didn't have like the quarters you would put in. You had to walk to the meter in like most cities and just know your tag number, put in the card, and pay. The level of pushback from the older community is like, right? So, with that being said, when something new is being introduced, especially in this world of AI, where people are so fearful of all the things when we see that AI can do, there's the fear level there. Did you experience any pushback with this? And then, how did you overcome those challenges if you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in the beginning, you have to usher, folks into what the change is, right? You just can't like figure it out. So we had a whole bunch of staff that were there pretty much hand holding, doing hand over hand. This is how you download the app. This is how you shop. Like when they come out, showing them how to navigate the app to see their receipt and those types of things. We've had all different types of customers from 2 year olds to 80 plus year olds shopping in our store, right? And so, what I will say is obviously, we know young people are just with it. They pick up things really great. Like, I think of the story of this, and she must have been two, maybe three, but I really think she was like two. And she's like, "Grandpa, scan, 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 Grandpa, scan." Right? And you're like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Okay, like at two, all right, here we go."
Yeah.
But what I find with a lot of our senior population is that they do need help initially, but then they want to show you they can, right? Because a lot of times they are interested in what's new and what the latest is, but we just don't have the time to really kind of do that hand holding with them to get them up to the same speed as many of us are. So we really take our time and show them how to navigate, and they love it. I mean, they come in just as much as everybody else. They scan, they grab, they go. It's like so much easier than even going to like a Publix or any grocery store, right? Or even self checkout where something doesn't scan and the light's going off and you gotta ask somebody. Like we're taking away all that friction. So we do realize it's about ushering them in, showing them how it works, and then when they come back, like we're ready to help them again. They're like, no, 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 like they want to show you that they can. So I think that's important. Exposure. I think it comes down to exposure in all aspects.
Yeah. What do you think is, and I agree, exposure is extremely important, dude. Once you get used to it, and nothing builds confidence in anything like repetition. So the more they experience it, the more they do it. Why do you think that this type of shopping experience is important? Why do you think it is necessary to have this type of experience as opposed to going to a traditional grocery store where we can just get access to food? What makes this vital and important for our communities?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things is that we're starting to see a shortage in staff, right, in the abilities. And so when those shortages happen, that lessens the hours that stores are open. And so when we think about people
Yeah.
working so many different types of jobs from, third shift to first shift, how do we make sure that those that work late are not penalized for doing jobs that are necessary to make our whole ecosystem exist, that they don't get the same opportunity to have something better to eat? And
Yeah.
so we are now, instead of us having to conform to like traditional brick and mortar store hours, we're now giving the consumer the ability to shop when it's best conducive for them. And so that's one of the things that came out of COVID was the personalization approach, right? Like everyone got really into like having these personalized experiences in the online shopping world. And so even getting them to come back out into brick and mortar, it has to be an experience. And if you're not giving them an experience, they're like, I could, online, everybody knows me better than I know myself. Why am I even going to come out? Right. So to make them come out, you have to have an experience. So experience, if the experience is really important, especially in retail, but then on top of that, giving that level of flexibility is really imperative as well, to stay competitive, because we're seeing it in every aspect. If anybody's ever used ChatGPT, who's still writing email anymore, right? Like we're going into this phase where the technology is more efficient in a lot of different areas than even humans can be, and much more cost effective. And so, for us, instead of just looking at it from a negative perspective, we're like, well, how can we utilize this advancement to really further, initiatives that are important to our communities, like food insecurity, which has been something that's challenged us for so long. And so, for us, it just made sense because some of the big box stores aren't coming, right? And so, how do we create a solve? I'm one of those people. That's one of the things about me. It's like we could talk about the problem. I'm like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, we gotta do something right now. Like, how are we gonna fix it, regardless of whether they come or they don't? And so, this is my way of, contributing to fixing the problem.
Yeah, you're just like me. We have very similar DNA. I'm like, I don't want to talk about the problem anymore. What are we doing? What is next step? We can spend hours ruminating over and complaining, which is what a lot of people really like to do. It makes them feel valuable and important. I think sometimes to just say, I know what the problem is, and to speak about it in an articulate way, but it takes a really, I think, unique type of individual to say, well, let's do something about it, and to actually put that action that plan into action. So kudos to you for that. As you think about the expansion of this, how many stores do you have right now at this moment? Like how many locations do you have? And then as Dr. And I do want to say this before you answer that question to anybody listening, I want to welcome you all out if you're just joining us. We're having a very fruitful conversation about the very first AI run grocery store, Black owned, one of its kind, where you can go in and have a very hands-free experience with shopping, and not really hands-free, because I think I'm saying that wrong, because you actually got to put your hands on the stuff to put in the basket, but it is
Zero
AI.
checkout.
What is it
Zero
called?
checkout. Zero checkout.
Zero checkout is the term to use there. But if you're joining us and you have questions as we're having this conversation, please feel free to drop your questions down in the Q&A box, and we'll be able to see them. So click the Q&A box on your, it should be on your webinar at the bottom, and we can ask those questions. So thinking about one, how many locations do you have? And Dr. Nashley Cephas asks, she wants to say thank you for all that of this that you're doing. Would love to know how we can expand these stores throughout Mississippi, but also in addition to that, Mississippi, just your plan for expansion. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now um, we actually are launching two locations this week. One is launching tomorrow and one is launching on Thursday.
Whew.
So that will give us a total of four that are open. We are actually launching two additional stores towards the end of the year. So one will be before the end of the year, and the um, that will be our sixth location will be in January. So super excited about that in just 2 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and then it's it's really what gets me excited is that that's just another community that we can say is now has access to better food.
Mm.
And so as far as our growth, we understand that so many people are in need, and there's only so much that we can do individually, right? Or even as a company. Like, so we are going to franchise this opportunity so that we can be able to help communities all over. Because I know that once we get that, we've gotten a lot of interest around that, that more people will want to be able to bring these to their communities and run them. And that just allows us to expand our reach and ensure that we are truly eradicating food deserts all over the country. But we're looking at Mississippi as well. That's one of our target areas. And so I think you'll be seeing us sooner than you think down that way. But overall, that is we'll still have corporate stores, but we'll also are going to make this opportunity available to others so that they can also continue to bring these all over the country and expand our reach.
Very good. That is phenomenal and amazing. Congratulations. How long have you all used? Did I hear you say 2 years?
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So we're coming up on about to have 6 locations in a matter of 2 years.
Right.
That's phenomenal. I feel like everybody at home, whether she can hear you or not, should just clap it up. You have amazing energy for that. So congratulations
Yeah.
on that. Someone asked, can participants use SNAP? And that was something that you answered earlier, how important it was for you to be able to have people who are on SNAP and EBT to have access. I think to build on
So
that question.
I wanted to clarify on that. So we are going to be the first to accept SNAP. We actually just got our number, and so the last step is that they're doing their last bit of testing of our system, and then it will go live. So yeah, so it's coming soon or any day now.
That's what I was just about to ask. Is it active right now? I know it was something you wanted to do. So any day now. So, but currently at the moment, it's not available.
It's not available, but if you download our app, you see it. So it's like it just needs to be turned on. So we're waiting for them to give us the green light, and then we'll definitely make a huge announcement that it's live and
Amazing.
be
Amazing.
merry.
So I want to talk about about you being rooted in purpose for this. I know you talked about your transitions to this space, like how you got here. What when you think about like your purpose in life and what you feel like you were destined to do, how closely connected to what you feel like you were called to do? I know this is kind of an introspective uh non-AI question, but how much do you feel like this aligns with purpose and what do you feel like that is for you here?
Yeah, I think that's an extremely important question. I talk about purpose a lot because I feel like, a lot of us are misaligned when it comes to our purpose and what we're doing. And that's where we find a lot of frustration in the day to day, right? Because when you're doing something that is your purpose, it doesn't feel like work, even when you are working. For me, my purpose is to bring ideas to life. I mean, that's foundationally, I know that, I didn't even know. It's interesting, like your name means so much too, right? Because your name is representing who you are sometimes, even when you're not, right? It's like uplifting you, right? It's almost like a mantra. And so I thought my name was made up for many years and learned a few years ago that my name actually meant like business builder, right?
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, right? So, I mean, I knew that's who I was, but I didn't even know that my name, even before I knew what my name meant, was kind of chanting that into existence. So this is extremely aligned to my mission. Like I really want to make a positive impact, but I want to like create change, right? So I really am passionate about if I see something that's wrong, how do we fix it? and how do we create solutions to fix it? I mean, from when we started with my son, it was like he needs to eat healthy, and we started to realize other people had the same challenge. Like, how do we fix the problem? I was in the healthcare industry for a really long time, saw the friction of reps, and so it's like everything for me is like, I have the pain point. How many other people have the pain point? How do we fix it, right? And then COVID was just a big pain point that was like a universal that everybody was experiencing the same thing at the same time. And so then we just knew that, with that, how do we solve those problems? So this business for myself and for my husband is truly mission aligned. And, it's not easy. And, we work 7 days a week. It's not all glamorous. This week I've been on ladders more than I could ever expect. And we're going to do a lot of things that might even be out of your wheelhouse. But collectively, everything that we're doing aligns with my purpose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so right now, what is your staff like? What does the staffing and the team look like? What's the capacity that you're
Yeah,
running all of this from?
yeah. So we're a really lean team. There's about six of us. But it's really interesting. Usually you'll have like staff that's positioned at one location. Our staff is moving across all of our locations, right? Like that's what makes this technology so amazing is that the technology is really our staff, to be honest, right? But then like we're just like support staff to the technology. And so we're coming around and there's still human stocking shelves and obviously we talk about onboarding and teaching customers how to use the store. So we're moving around. And then also our deployment team and then our tech team as well. So but there's six of us and collectively that we move all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And so I have a question. We have a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to try. Someone asked about 20 questions in one. And I'm going to try to get through all of them, but I'm going to integrate my questions in with yours because there are quite a few in this one response. But I'll start with the first one that says, what strategies do you envision to adapt your brand's innovative grocery experience to the unique economic and social landscape of the region? Now, I can try to condense that and make that concise, but do you grasp what they're asking with that?
So what do we do? Let's see. So define the unique economic social landscape of which region? Are you talking about from an affordability perspective or?
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, it is a kind of a loaded question. So I'll condense it and then you can just come back and tell me if we're
Sure.
on track with that. I'll make it what I think they're asking. So essentially because I'm a brand person, so I think about what strategies do you envision to adapt your brand's grocery experience to just the unique experience of like where we are regionally. So how are you in the brand process adapting to the region that you're in?
Yeah, so our brand is our brand. And when I say that, I mean our brand is an elevated experience. A lot of people feel like it looks like a Sephora on the outside. But our brand was done distinctively because I didn't care where you lived. I wanted to make sure that you had an elevated experience, whether you live in a really affluent area. Sorry, there's background noise, so you might be. Can you hear me? No?
Yes, I think you're breaking up a little bit, I think, to some of the
Uh, uh,
participants someone just said,
okay,
but
so
I can hear you.
sorry. So no, so as far as our brand experience, as far as design, we wanted to make sure that no matter where our locations are, whether they're in, you know, affluent communities or whether they're in communities that are more food insecure, that the shopping experience was the same, that the look and feel is the same. So that doesn't change no matter where our stores are. If there's a Nourish and Bloom, it's going to be the same Nourish and Bloom experience anywhere. Some of the things that we are doing to support the economic differences is, we're looking at how do we do and partnering with certain organizations to do like double bucks and things like that, so that for fruits and vegetables and making better decisions, that you might be able to get more for your money than it may be in some of our other stores. So there might be more of a discount, but the product offering will be the same. The shopping experience will be the same. Those things were really important to me, so that we kept that and upheld that no matter what the location is.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's great. And speaking of that, that kind of transitions into a thought and question I had. And I think one of their other questions, this is probably the longest question I've ever seen written out. It feels, but I'm going to condense it and kind of pull what I feel from it. That second part of their question in that comment. is I know you are intentional, speaking of that, about partnering with local communities, partnering with, because the food part, because how this all started was because of with your son having autism. And so there was a shift in how you wanted to feed him, and having access to healthier and better food options was important. It was a struggle and challenge for you. So with that being said, I know you're intentional about your partnerships. Can you talk a little bit about the partnerships, and also about how that helps with community buy-in for like long-term success?
Yeah, absolutely. So partnerships are really important. And I'll go back. In our food space, we were a local vendor that then became a national, we got national presence over time. So I really understand what it's like to be that mom and pop brand, and what the quality level is, which is usually way higher than once a brand becomes, mass produced, right? We all know that. And so I've always made sure that in our stores, we'll give preference to a local product before we'll give preference to a national product, as long as they're ready for retail, right? And so, because that's where I started, and I really have an affinity and just warm heart in my heart for the small business and small local brands. And then it also helps with sustainability and just the ecosystem of the communities, as well as that, they can see their products being purchased in the community and supported in that ecosystem. Um, that's part of it. The second part is around getting city buy-in, and I think that's an important piece. Part of the reason why we've had the level of success that we've had in such a short period of time is that we got city support early on, and we saw a problem that wasn't being solved. Most cities around the country have food desert as a pillar of a problem that needs to be solved. And a lot of times, when you think of it like I know I come back to it a lot, but the big box stores are not um, they're not like, coming into these communities. So it's just, an outstanding item, and they're looking for solutions. And so, they were more um, receptive to our solution, but in addition to them being receptive, it's important that we also have their support. So that they're also advocating for us, talking to community, and us getting involved in community, like learning, speaking to the community before we come, understanding what they want. There's so many different partnerships. There's the city partnership, there's the community partnership, there's the vendor partnership. And there's a lot of partnerships involved, but it's about belonging. I mean, I think if I had to sum it up, and I can talk about this candidly because we can look at it from our first store to our other stores, and what are we doing differently. We made a lot of assumptions with our first store. We knew where it was located. We assumed they were going to do certain things, and they were going to buy a certain way. And assumptions, you know what they say about assumptions, right? And so
Right.
we had to make a lot of changes and a lot of pivots in the beginning because we assumed wrong.
Mhm.
And we realized that, while we think it's an amazing idea or we think this is great, it's really important to also go and get that co-signed by those that are going to actually be, participating and patronizing your store. And so that has now become one of our pillars of success. So like we think about key performance indicators for us of where we go next and are we going to go, our number one is belonging. So,
Mhm.
if we don't have community buy-in, if we don't have city buy-in, if everyone is not on board, because this is not our market, it's the community's market. It's, like we're just facilitating, bringing it there. If we don't have that feeling that everyone is involved, then it doesn't make sense to go. So partnership is one of the most important things.
Yeah. Belonging is a word you don't hear often when in reference to business. Does it make sense? I say that with my staff all the time. There's so many great ideas. Like people come and are like, you should do this. This should be amazing. We should do this. And if you haven't tested it out and ask the people, is this what you really want? Then you kind of take on that savior type of mentality of trying to force and give people what you think they need without listening to the heart of the people. So I think it's beautiful you do that. And belonging is such a beautiful word
Well,
to think about, a business being planted into a community. Does it feel like we belong here? So that
yeah,
is
for sure.
that is undoubtedly leading with heart and purpose. And I think that is amazing. My co-founder, ironically, her name is Takia Williams. She ran a juice bar here. She is a huge fan of you guys, huge, huge fan. And she was actually the first person to introduce me to you guys, to your concept and what you all were doing a couple of months back. And bringing it up, I had never heard of it before, but she had visited the Georgia area, and was really excited about what you all are doing there. When you think about balance in life, speaking of belonging, you were talking about the other ventures, job ventures that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that? And are they completely separate from the work you do, or how do they align with this nourish and rooted concept in the other
Are you
revenue?
talking about our previous, like my previous employment, like or
Yes.
background? Yeah.
Yes. Are you
So
still
I
doing those things, or is it separate?
so no, I don't do those things anymore. We're over busy over here. But no, I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes, and I think my husband is probably even a better person to talk about that. You can go through experiences in life, and you're always like, "Why am I here?" And it might not make sense, and you feel misaligned, right? But sometimes these are all things that are setting you up for where you're supposed to go, right, in
Mhm.
life, right? And not to be like, getting preaching or anything, but it really is true. And so, because I know I probably like many people have felt unfulfilled in their work their work environment. And so for us, I mean, I was in the healthcare space for a really long time. I started there, and I always wanted to make money, leaving college, but I always wanted to make money and do something positive. And so, the healthcare space was kind of that alignment where I could do, business. I have an MBA in business, so I was always like business driven, but that I could also help to make people healthier. So I thought. But the more I spent in the space, what I realized was that I was making people chronically dependent on something, right? And
Mhm.
chronically dependent on medication, where, it's a short term, band aid, but it's not a long term fix. And probably it's going to cause you to be on something else to combat what you're taking and the side effects of that. And it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I started to not believe in what I was doing anymore. And so every day to get up and do something you don't believe in is quite challenging. But I also saw that, a lot of what we needed to do was just bring better access to food options, right? And I think even now with what we're going through here, there's this false narrative that people that live in food insecure locations only want to eat, processed fried foods. And that's furthest from the truth. What they're eating is a product of what is available to them and what they have access to, not what they want. And so this false narrative has been going on for so many years. And that's one of the other benefits of our store is that we have data, right? And so we are going to be really nurturing this data, but really changing the narrative about really what's happening. What's happening is they want better food options. A lot of them are traveling out of the communities. That's tax dollars leaving communities. All those things that help to make communities thrive is happening because they desire it. And so this narrative has been going on for far too long, and so we want to change it. But one of those things is behavior, right? So instead of saying, okay, you need to be on blood pressure medication, maybe if you had access to better food options and you can make better meals for yourself, you wouldn't have to be on medication and then be on another medication to combat the side effects of that medication, right? And so I now feel like we are on the right side of how do we make sure that we're able to still run a business but also do good the right way. And so but I've always been in some form of business development, corporate, or even on my entrepreneurial side. So
Very good. That's amazing. And story matters, like the reason, your reasoning for it, your why, and that shift. And so that's really interesting to hear coming from the health space to this particular type of business and how it fueled how you shape these stores and your perspective and your view. It tells us about your heart and your reasoning, which is super important for a lot of people. There are a lot of like you said, you were speaking earlier to the health, the food deserts, and particularly here in Mississippi that I could speak to. There are certain areas, even in Jackson, where there are no grocery stores within miles, and transportation for a place like Mississippi, right? Public transportation or just access to a vehicle, a ride. Uber is trash here because there's not a lot of Uber. So the Uber 5 minutes is like $50,000, right? Okay. So so people not having access to transportation or food that is close to them. I know one of the things that I saw that your stores were doing were robots that were delivering food to people who didn't have access. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process is like? And as you expand, do you plan to continue to do that in spaces like Mississippi that you're going to that might not be still so open to technology? Because Georgia in Atlanta, when it comes to technology, they're on it. Here, the idea of a robot riding down the street for people might be like, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started here with robots when we first opened because I wanted to make sure no matter where you were, if you didn't want to come out, that we still were able to meet you where you needed to be. What happened was I said, okay, if we're gonna bring robots, we can't just, like we don't want to scare people. We want them to feel and embrace them. So we found really, really cute robots that we brought into our store. And what we learned, and they were too cute. This is where I want to get to, is because they never got where they were supposed to go on time because they were always stopped and people were taking pictures and the kids were chasing after them. And our two that we had, Nourish and Bloom, that's what their names were, got just got broken by the kids in the neighborhood.
I would
So
imagine.
I yeah, so we have decided that we are going to bring robots back. They're not going to be this cute anymore. There's, and I think even in just the 2 years, people have become more and more aware that they exist. With the key with robots is that they can go up to about 3 miles, so we're excited about that. The challenge is that they do need sidewalks. They don't have to mean they can cross the street, but they have to be able to go on a sidewalk. So if that infrastructure of sidewalks are not in place in that 3 mile radius, that can cause an issue. But we're looking at that, and then and because that does cause a lot of issues, because there is, especially in a lot of food deserts, there might not be sidewalks on every street. We're looking at drone delivery. So we're working with some drone companies now to see how can we start to do drone delivery, which would A, allow us to deliver further, and B, that sidewalk issue goes away. So um, so we are, we're all, as I mentioned when we first started speaking, is that every innovation that we do is about how do we increase access? So, I'm pushing the limits and I'm always like, sure, why can't we? So, like, if it's possible, we're going to try to do it. But we are going to be bringing robots back into the communities that do have the sidewalk accessibility, but we're also looking at how do we implement drones as well.
Yeah, Jilea, first of all, thank you for sharing that process because I love to have conversations with, especially when there are other business people in the room, to see that sometimes you try stuff and it just doesn't work. Especially in the business space, we spend so much time just showing the things that work. And then people who run businesses are scared to just try things out and make mistakes and say, hey, we tried this and it didn't work. And so we had to figure something else out. And we're still moving through the messiness of figuring out what that is. And most people who jump into business don't realize that's darn near majority of entrepreneurship. Is this working?
Right. And I always, I mean, my key signature, quote that I sign all my books with is just dare to fail us, right? It's like, we're so scared of failure because we think failure is like, from a school perspective, it's always had this negative connotation. But really, when you're like daring to fail us, you're pushing the limits. Like you're doing things that and taking the roads that are less traveled. And worst case scenario is that it doesn't work, but at least you tried to push where so many people are so afraid of failure that they don't even start. So it doesn't always work in business. There's always gonna there's gonna be a lot of pivots. I mean, I don't know one business that the way they started is the way they end. They are like, running, especially if they've been around for a while. They have pivoted a million times. So
Yeah.
that, it's and that's where the specialness comes in. Like I remember going back to our first food business initially, we were gonna have meat in our kids' meals, and we were getting licensed to a kitchen, and we were like so excited. You're like, you always see things like all rosy when you first start a business, and right the day before they're like well no, we went to the kitchen because we flew into we couldn't even find a shared kitchen where we lived, so we had to fly to another place and we were going to have a team that was going to cook it from it was a whole thing anyway, not to bore you with the details. But when we got there, she was like, okay, well, what do you make? And we were like, I don't know, let's say we said we made meat sauce or something. She's like, with real meat? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh no, this is a Department of Ag kitchen. You can't, this is not a USDA certified kitchen. And we were like, what? And so, I mean, I remember this is when Barnes and Nobles, for those who even know what Barnes and Nobles is, was still a thing. And like, so my husband and I, like, we ran to the Barnes and Nobles and like got every cookbook we could find because we were going to be inspected the next day, and we had to go and like find all these recipes that we could create and turn them into vegetarian recipes. And make a long story short, we ended up getting the license, and that was great. But when we went into we were started in farmers markets in South Florida, but we knew with frozen meals we had to get into retail. And so, somebody there was in Whole Foods, and I was like, that's where our products need to be. So one day I just kept calling consistently, the buyer. He never answered. And one day he answered, and I sold myself away. He almost said, stop talking, or I'm not going to give you the meeting, but he gave us the meeting. And when we went into the meeting, the thing that he said that gave us the shot was that they didn't have any meatless meals for kids, right? And he said if you had been here a week ago, I would never even brought in the national brand. So he gave us a shot even still, but he said he would have never even brought them in. So like the thing that made us different, which at the time we didn't realize, like it sounded like a cluster. We're like we had all these recipes ready to go, and now we got to make them meatless. Is the thing that gave us the shot on so many shelves because it's hard for them to say no if they don't have anything like it. So I always say, how do you make yourself different so they can't say no?
Very good. How do you make yourself different so you can't say no? Fail up. I love that. I want to encourage, as we're coming to a close in a few minutes of this amazing conversation about one of the amazing AI grocery stores happening here, Nourish and Rooted. If you have any questions, please drop those in the chat. This will be your last chance to ask any questions here during this live webinar. You mentioned books that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about the books that you've launched and what those entail and how we can access those?
Yeah, so I wrote a book called The Untold Truth About Building a Startup because what I find is that a lot of times when you ask people, well, how did you do it? Or, how did you become successful in general? They're always like, oh, it just happened and it was just luck. And they always say like these ridiculous statements that piss me off. So I was like, I'm just going to write a book about it that is just going to tell you the truth. And I was, granted, I do have a formal education with the MBA, but I always said that, I learned more on the street than I ever did in school, even though I went to one of the best universities, if you ask me, HBCUs in the country. However, like, a lot of what I learned in business was because of what I learned, right? And so I said, how amazing would it be for me to pay it forward and teach some of the lessons so that they don't have to make those costly mistakes that we made? And so that's how the Untold Truth about building a startup came about. And so it's available on Amazon. And actually, next year, like second half of next year, we're gonna have the Untold Truth Part 2. Because just when I thought there was enough in there, there's so much more that has to be said now. And so we're writing Part 2, but Part 1 is really good to if you have an idea, you're thinking about how to get started. It's like has a lot of key steps and ways to make you just think about how you operate your business, how you structure your business um, differently than maybe you had. So I call it a mini MBA without having to go get one. But we're really excited about the Untold Truth Part 2 coming out next year too.
I love that. Now, for people who might have come in on the back end, I love that. And as you were saying that, we do. My brain is bouncing from one question to the other. I'm gonna come back to that thought I started. But as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, we do a monthly gathering for entrepreneurs. It's called A Lot of Like, where they it's almost like a support group for small business owners, and we have speakers. And here's my pitch to you. I would love to have you Zoom in and speak to so I'll stay connected to you for sure for that. But I was thinking, man, I need to buy that book for some of our staff and also some of our entrepreneurs that we have to give away because I love just a good to the point book. I wrote a book about branding and marketing called A Lot of Like, what every entrepreneur should know about purpose and branding, about the connection of the two and how to I just cut through all the fluff. Just give me the facts in the book. And so again, I think we're spirit animals, Jilea.
That's exactly how our book is written. It's not. It's like really like we're busy. Let's get to the point. Tell me
Yes.
where I need to go and what mistakes to avoid.
Do you understand? Because most entrepreneurs, I don't have time to read all this. Can you just tell me? Just tell me. So very
It definitely feels like a conversation because that's what I needed, right? And I will tell you, there were some folks that weren't BSing me that told me things that really helped to save me a lot of money, and I would have made a lot of mistakes that I didn't have to make, right? So why should we not share? I don't understand that piece that people don't want to share the journey or it makes them not look as I don't know whatever that awe factor is. But I'm like, all the greats have failed somewhere or another or had challenges and why not pay it forward so somebody else doesn't have to do the same exact thing or make the same exact mistakes?
absolutely, absolutely. We need more of that. more of that. So for people who might have come in late, or we've been having such a fruitful conversation about so many things. Can you give us your elevator pitch about Nourish and Rooted? And then for someone who is asking in the comments to see the actual format of the store, do you mind sharing that video again right after your elevator pitch? And then we'll wrap up this call. So what would be your
Sure.
elevator pitch about Nourish and Bloom?
Yeah, I mean, our elevator pitch is simple. It's 24/7 access to fresh food, zero checkout, zero hassle, zero lines. I mean, it's really what it's about. And the technology is what makes that happen, and utilizing AI and sensor fusion to do so. I know someone also asked about our different locations. So this is our Trillis location, which I'll show the video about. This is our Cascade store that's getting ready to open next week. And then we also are putting some stores here in Atlanta on the Beltline. So they're going to be self-sustaining container stores. So this is what they look like. We have two of those going up. And then we also have smart fridges. So some of our smart fridges are also launching. And so we can, you talked earlier about folks not having access to Uber and things like that. We can actually put fridges that enable the same technology that's in our stores that are just self sustaining by themselves. They can go anywhere as long as there's housing, and they could be walkable in communities as well. So um, that's one thing about that. And I'll definitely show the video. But I mean, the one thing is that we take away friction, and it's all about, just bringing that convenience, making it more convenient to shop and taking away the friction that nobody likes. So it's zero checkout is the biggest. That's the fastest tagline I have is just zero checkout. No checkout at all. But I'll play the video again. Hold on one second.
Zero checkout.
Zero checkout. Zero checkout. Zero line. Um,
People like
Here we
that.
go. Yeah. Nobody likes waiting in line at all. We've all been there like, oh. And then now they're restricting how many items you can even do self checkout with. So they're like, oh,
Hey, I did not know
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's like 10 or less. And so then it's like you're back and then there's only two cashiers. And then you're like, oh my gosh. Oh, like, there's a better way to shop, people. There's a better way to shop.
There has to be a better way.
Nourish and Bloom is the better way to shop. Yeah, I'll play the video again. So she downloaded the app, but you also, as I mentioned, can use a credit card or debit card to come in as well. And that was the checkout process for scanning in. That was the longest part of it, as I mentioned earlier. Um, and you just walk out. It's just that fast.
And it automatically charges your card, or you have to press the checkout as you're exiting the door. Is that correct?
No, it automatically charges your card.
It automatically charges your card on exit. That is amazing. Zero.
Yeah.
When you say zero, you meant zero.
Zero, zero line, zero checkout, zero hassle. Just
Oh,
walk in,
zero.
grab what you want, and walk out. That's it. That's all there is. And so, what's really interesting too is that this technology can be used across so many different, verticals. So grocery is our first, but there'll be many others that we use this with as well.
Very good. One last question that has here. It says, is the smart fridge you refer to similar to a vending machine?
It's similar in the fact that, you can put it anywhere, but it's like you actually use the same app and you can either scan to open the door or you can tap your card. The door opens, you grab what you want. When you close the door, you're automatically charged.
Mhm. Very good. Very good. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation about and you have such an amazing spirit. I love that this is super rooted in purpose for you, this venture between with you and your husband. Can you tell us how can we support you? What can we do? And, from the people here that are participating and listening as attendees and also at the Beam Path and myself, what can we do to support you in your ventures with the next couple of months?
So for sure, definitely follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of the social media handles. If you know areas that are in need of this type of support from a food insecure place, please let us know. If you know city officials that need to know about this so that we can see how we can partner with them, please let us know. So we're looking for partnerships or looking just to help build additional awareness that we are here and here to support. Um, Um, and so that's pretty much what I would ask. I mean, but we just thank you so much for your support and your kind wishes as well. 'Cause it does help. I always say the entrepreneurial journey sometimes we have champions all over that are wishing us well because it does mean a lot.
Absolutely. And what is the best way to contact you if people want to reach out, whether it's you or the organization?
Yeah, yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the best for me. So I'm just Jilea Hemmings. So Jilea Hemmings on LinkedIn. And then also you can direct message us. We're a very small team, so they'll get to me for sure.
All right, Jilea, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work you're doing for our communities. And thank you for advocating for us in spaces where we need access to better food, better quality, and just AI to help make our lives easier. We really appreciate that. This has been an amazing conversation. Absolutely an awesome conversation. Don't forget, everybody listening, the Bean Path does these tech talks every month. So please stay connected, excuse me, not only to Jilea, but also to the Bean Path. If you aren't already, tell a friend, share with a friend, tell them to come along, share links, share flyers. We would love for you to do that. Connect to the Bean Path, what they're doing in the city of Jackson and downtown Jackson. They have the Bean Barn that's up and running now. There's plenty of activities and things to do in the Bean Barn. The Bean Barn. Dr. Nashley Cephas is doing an amazing work down there. So make sure that you get connected to all of the many activities that are happening on a regular basis. It's not just event based, but there are programs for the elderly, for the youth, for teenagers, you name it. They have access to connecting technology to our community. So make sure that you're a part of this wave that is happening here in the state of Mississippi. Thank you, Jilea. Once again, do you have any final words before we leave on this good Saturday morning?
No, keep up the amazing work. I love what you're doing and the exposure that you're providing and just letting everyone know what the future of tech is looking like. And so I thank you to your entire team and for having me. But just, anything I can do to help, definitely reach out and let me know. But I just love the work that you all are doing.
All right, amazing. Dr. Nashley Cephas is on the call. She'll have that amazing. She'll hear that from you, and also she's currently today getting honored this morning at a banquet as well. So she is dual moving.
Hi,
So
congrats.
she sends all her love and thank yous to you as well. So from her to you, thank you for this, and you have an amazing day. We will see you all again. Make sure you connect to thebeanpath.org if you have any questions and you want to know anything about the programming happening over there at the Bean Path. Until then. We'll see you. You can find it at the Bean if you're looking for it, and we'll see you next month. Have an amazing, amazing weekend.